I walked into my new office on Monday morning and saw a photograph of my husband sitting on another woman's desk. Not a man who looked like him. Not someone who could be mistaken for him. My husband. The same smile, the same dimple in his left cheek, the same navy blue button-down shirt I had bought him for our 15th birthday together. I stood there with a folder under my arm, and 22 years of military discipline holding me upright while my entire world tilted sideways. Then I smiled, and asked the question that changed everything. "Who's that?" The woman beamed, the way people do when they're talking about someone they love. "That's my fiancé," she said proudly. "We're getting married this fall." I had spent most of my adult life preparing for ambushes. I never expected one would be waiting for me inside an office. The first thing people notice about a military base is usually the order, the symmetry, the sense that every building, every sign, every painted line exists for a reason. Fort Monroe felt that way the morning I arrived. The Virginia air was cool and damp. A layer of fog still lingered over the parade field as I drove through the gate shortly after sunrise. I had been transferred there 3 weeks earlier after completing a long assignment at Fort Liberty. New command, new responsibilities, new people. At 42 years old and with the rank of colonel on my chest, I wasn't easily rattled anymore. At least that's what I believed. The administrative building was modern compared to most military facilities. Glass walls, clean hallways, polished floors. A civilian receptionist greeted me with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Fort Monroe, Colonel Carter." "Thank you." She escorted me upstairs and introduced me to several members of the defense contracting coordination team I would oversee. Everyone seemed friendly, professional, efficient. Exactly what I expected. Then she led me to my office. Actually, office was too generous. It was more of a large shared workspace divided by frosted glass partitions. My workstation sat near a window overlooking the motor pool. The desk beside mine belonged to a civilian project coordinator named Jessica Miller. She looked about 29, maybe 30. Long chestnut hair, bright eyes, the kind of natural friendliness that made people comfortable immediately. She stood and offered her hand. "Colonel Carter, it's so nice to finally meet you." I shook it. "Please call me Emma when we're not in meetings." She laughed. "Only if you call me Jessica." Fair enough. For the first few minutes, everything felt perfectly normal. I set my bag down, opened my laptop, reviewed the schedule for the week. My mind was already organizing priorities. Personnel reviews, contract audits, budget assessments. Then my eyes drifted toward the corner of Jessica's desk. A silver picture frame sat beside a small succulent. The frame caught the morning sunlight. Something about it pulled my attention. I looked, and the world stopped. It was Ryan, my husband. Not a photograph that merely resembled him. Not a distant image. Ryan, smiling directly into the camera. One arm wrapped around someone standing just outside the cropped edge of the frame. My breath caught. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't react. 22 years in uniform had taught me something valuable. The moment panic arrives is precisely the moment you cannot afford to surrender control. Inside, my pulse slammed against my ribs. Outside, I remained perfectly still. The shirt he was wearing in the picture made recognition impossible to deny. Dark navy, Italian cotton. I bought it for our anniversary. The photo background looked familiar too. Palm trees, blue water, Maui. The vacation Ryan and I took 2 years ago. The vacation that existed in our family photo album. The vacation I thought belonged to us. 1,000 thoughts crashed through my mind simultaneously. How? Why? What am I looking at? I forced myself to inhale slowly. Then exhale. Then smile. "Who's that?" I asked casually. Jessica's entire face lit up. The transformation was immediate. "Oh my gosh, that's my fiancé." The word hit me harder than I expected. Fiancé. Not boyfriend. Not date. Not someone she was casually seeing. Fiancé. She picked up the frame carefully. The way people handle something precious. "His name is Ryan." My stomach dropped. The room somehow stayed standing. I wasn't sure how. "Ryan," I repeated. "Yeah." She laughed softly. "We've been together almost 4 years. 4 years. Ryan and I had been married 15. The numbers landed with terrifying clarity. For 4 years, he had been living another life. A complete life. Not an affair. Not a mistake. A life. I nodded slowly. "He seems nice." Jessica smiled. "He really is." Then she leaned closer as if sharing a secret. "I'm probably biased, but I think he's the most amazing man I've ever met." I felt something inside me fracture. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. The kind of break that happens beneath the surface where nobody can see it. He proposed last year. Jessica lifted her left hand. A diamond ring flashed beneath the fluorescent lights. Large. Elegant. Expensive. I recognized it immediately. Not the ring. The money. 3 months earlier, Ryan had transferred nearly $40,000 from one of our investment accounts. When I asked about it, he'd told me it was part of a private business opportunity. An investment. I believed him. Now I was staring at the investment, wrapped around another woman's finger. "Congratulations," I said, and somehow my voice sounded normal. Jessica smiled wider. "Thank you." She set the photograph down. "I still can't believe we're getting married." I looked at the image again. Ryan's smile. Ryan's eyes. Ryan's life. Except apparently it wasn't mine anymore. Not entirely. Maybe not at all. The morning continued. People stopped by to introduce themselves. Meetings were scheduled. Emails arrived. The base continued operating exactly as it had before. But everything felt different, like I was observing my own life through thick glass. Around noon, Jessica invited me to lunch. I accepted, because saying no would attract attention. And attention was the last thing I wanted. The cafeteria overlooked the water. Several civilian employees joined us. Conversation drifted naturally. Weekend plans. Families. Travel. Then Ryan came up again. As if the universe wasn't finished testing me. Jessica smiled into her iced tea. "Ryan's actually house hunting right now." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "A house?" "Yeah." She practically glowed. "He says he wants us settled before the wedding." House hunting. 3 weeks earlier, Ryan told me he was researching real estate opportunities for long-term investment. I remembered the exact conversation. The exact lie. "He sounds committed," someone said. Jessica laughed. "He is?" Then she added the sentence that followed me for the rest of the afternoon. "Sometimes I feel like the luckiest woman in the world." I didn't hate her. That was the strange part. I wanted to. It would have been easier. But Jessica wasn't the villain. She had no idea I existed. No idea she was sitting across from another man's wife. No idea the foundation beneath her future was built on lies. By 5 o'clock, the workday was ending. Employees packed bags. Conversations shifted toward evening plans. Jessica grabbed her purse and stood. "Ryan's picking me up." My chest tightened. She smiled. "He hates when I drive home in traffic." Then she waved. "See you tomorrow, Emma?" I watched her walk toward the elevator. Then I looked at the photograph one final time. My husband's face stared back at me from another woman's desk. And for the first time all day, one thought emerged with perfect clarity. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront Ryan. Not yet. Because if my husband had spent 4 years building a second life behind my back, I needed to know exactly how much of my real life he'd stolen with it. The drive home from Fort Monroe should have taken 38 minutes. I remember that because Ryan used to tease me for knowing things like that. "You plan commutes like operations," he would say, smiling over his coffee. I never minded. Planning had kept me alive in places where luck was too fragile to trust. That evening, though, I barely noticed the road. The highway ran beside stretches of dark water and low marshland, the late Virginia sun sinking behind bare trees. Cars moved around me in steady lanes. Brake lights glowed red, then vanished. Everything outside the windshield looked ordinary enough to be cruel. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Ryan. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. That voice. Warm. Familiar. Perfectly practiced. "Hey. How was the first day?" I watched the car ahead of me change lanes without signaling. "It was fine. Just fine," he chuckled softly. I expected a full tactical assessment. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the man had the nerve to sound exactly like my husband. "The team seems capable," I said. "A lot to review. I knew they'd be lucky to have you." There it was again. Affection. Pride. The same tone he had used that morning when he kissed my forehead before I left. The same tone he had probably used with Jessica when he told her he would pick her up after work. "Are you home tonight?" I asked. A pause. Not long. Just enough to register now that I knew to listen for it. "Probably late," he said. "I've got a dinner with a contracting group near Norfolk. Nothing exciting, just networking." "Contracting group?" The words landed with a weight they didn't have yesterday. "Okay," I said. "You sure you're all right?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Just tired. First days are always rough. Don't wait up all right." "All right. Love you." The phrase moved through the car like smoke. I gripped the steering wheel slightly tighter. Love you too. The lie came out easily. That bothered me more than I expected. By the time I reached our house in Alexandria, the sky had gone dark. The porch light was on. The front windows glowed softly. From the outside, our home looked exactly like what people imagined when they heard married couple dual careers stable life. 2 stories, white trim, a flag mounted by the garage, hydrangeas along the walkway. 15 years of anniversaries, promotions, holiday dinners, and quiet Sunday mornings had settled into that house like dust. I sat in the driveway for almost a full minute before turning off the engine. Inside, the silence greeted me first. Ryan's running shoes sat by the mudroom door. His jacket hung on the chair in the kitchen because he never remembered the closet unless I reminded him. A half-finished cup of coffee sat beside the sink. Everything ordinary. Everything intimate. Everything suspect. I set my bag on the counter and stood there. For a moment I had the childish urge to walk through the house and touch everything we owned, as if objects could confirm whether the life attached to them had been real. Instead, I changed out of my uniform. Carefully. Methodically. Jacket on hanger. Ribbons aligned. Boots placed side by side. The habits mattered. Small acts of order when the larger structure had collapsed. Then I sat at the kitchen island, opened my laptop, and typed Jessica Miller into the search bar. I told myself I was verifying. That was the professional word. Verification. Not stalking. Not unraveling. Verification. Her social media profile appeared quickly. Public enough to be careless. Private enough to feel protected. The first photos were harmless. Friends. Coffee. Office events. A dog that probably belonged to her sister. Then I found him. Not his full face at first. Only pieces. A man's hand holding a wine glass. A wrist wearing the silver watch I gave Ryan when he made partner at his firm. A shoulder in a navy jacket. A caption from 8 months earlier. Best weekend with my favorite person. No name. No tag. But I knew. I scrolled farther. Dallas. A hotel lobby. A conference badge hanging from Ryan's neck, blurred but not enough. That weekend he had told me he was attending an emergency procurement meeting. I had packed his garment bag, tucked his cufflinks into the side pocket, kissed him in the doorway and told him not to skip meals. I kept scrolling. Charleston. Miami. A restaurant in D.C. I had always wanted to try. Each image revealed a small piece of a life Ryan had constructed just outside my line of sight. Not hidden in shadows. Not entirely. Just angled carefully. A man's face cropped. A name omitted. A ring turned away from the camera. It was remarkable how much deception could fit inside a normal-looking photograph. At 9:41 p.m., Ryan texted, "Dinner's running long. Don't wait up." I looked at the message. Then at Jessica's newest post from 30 minutes earlier. A candlelit table. 2 glasses of red wine. No faces. Caption celebrating something special. My stomach tightened. I enlarged the image. On the edge of the table was a man's phone. Black case. Cracked lower corner? Ryan had dropped his phone on our driveway last winter and refused to replace the case because, as he put it, scars build character. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then opened a blank document and typed the date. I didn't know exactly what I was building yet, but I knew it needed a foundation. The next morning, Ryan came home before dawn. I heard the front door open at 5:12. Not because I was waiting. I told myself that. But I was awake. He moved quietly through the house, careful in the way guilty men mistake for kindness. The shower turned on. Steam filled the bathroom. When he came into the bedroom 15 minutes later, I closed my eyes and slowed my breathing. He stood near the bed for a moment. I could feel him looking at me. Then he leaned down and kissed my temple. The gesture was so familiar it almost undid me. Almost. At breakfast, he looked tired but pleased. That was the detail that stayed with me. Not nervous. Not ashamed. Pleased. Long night, I asked, pouring coffee. Brutal, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. You know how these contractor dinners go. Everyone wants access. Nobody wants to commit. Sounds exhausting. It is. He smiled over the rim of his mug. But seeing you in that uniform this morning makes it worth it. There had been a time when that sentence would have warmed me. Now I wondered how many versions of admiration he owned. One for his wife. One for his fiancé. Maybe more. He kissed me before leaving. Late again tonight, he said. Don't be mad. I won't. He grinned. That's why you're the best. After he left, I remained at the kitchen island staring at the spot where his coffee cup had been. Then I opened the banking app. Not deeply. Not yet. Just enough to scan recent transactions. A restaurant charge from the night before. $412. The name matched the restaurant in Jessica's photo. I took another screenshot. At the base, Jessica was already at her desk when I arrived. The photograph of Ryan sat beside her monitor, polished and bright. She looked up with that same open smile. "Morning, Emma." "Morning." I placed my bag down. For 20 minutes I reviewed briefing materials while Jessica hummed softly beside me. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and smiled before turning it face down. Not fast enough. The sender name was visible. Ryan. My husband. Her fiancé. A few minutes later she rolled her chair closer to the partition. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think men get nervous before weddings?" I looked at her. She was genuinely asking. Genuinely happy. "Some do." "Ryan acts calm, but I can tell he's carrying a lot. He keeps saying once this fall comes, everything will finally be honest and settled." Honest. The word pressed into the room. I folded my hands on the desk. "That sounds important to him." "It is," she said. "He's been through a lot. Bad relationships, people who didn't appreciate him." For 1 second, my vision sharpened. Bad relationships, people, me. I turned back to my screen before my face could betray anything. At 5 that evening, I didn't leave right away. I stood near the second-floor window overlooking the parking lot, pretending to read an email on my phone. Jessica walked out first. She waited by the curb, smoothing her hair in the reflection of the glass doors. 3 minutes later, Ryan's black SUV pulled into the lot. He stepped out, smiling, confident. My husband crossed the pavement and opened his arms. Jessica ran into them. He held her close. Not briefly, not politely. Like a man coming home. Then he kissed her. I watched from behind the glass with my shoulders squared and my jaw still. The final piece of denial left me quietly. No dramatic collapse. No tears. Just absence. Ryan opened the passenger door for her the way he used to do for me when we were younger, before marriage became routine, and tenderness became something he rationed. They drove away together. I stayed at the window until the SUV disappeared through the gate. Then I looked down at my phone. At the screenshots. At the dates. At the beginning of a timeline. Ryan thought he was managing 2 lives. He didn't understand that soldiers are trained to recognize patterns. And once I saw the pattern, I would follow it all the way to the target. By the 3rd morning at Fort Monroe, I understood that Ryan's lies had rhythm. They arrived on schedule. They came dressed in reasonable language. Client dinner. Early meeting. Traffic was bad. Long call with procurement. He never over-explained. That was part of what made him effective. A careless liar gives too much. Ryan gave just enough. For years I had mistaken that restraint for honesty. Now I recognized it as technique. At 6:30 a.m., he stood in our kitchen wearing a charcoal suit and the calm expression of a man whose life was still obeying him. He was buttering toast while scrolling through his phone with his left thumb. The gold band on his finger caught the morning light. The same band I had placed there 15 years earlier in a small chapel outside San Antonio. The same band visible in the corner of one of Jessica's dinner photos. "You're quiet," he said. I poured coffee into a travel mug. "Thinking through the audit schedule." "Already buried in work? Comes with the territory." He smiled. "You always did like a mess you could organize." I looked at him over the rim of my cup. It was such a normal sentence. So specifically ours. One of those little remarks that belonged to a marriage built over years, repeated without effort. That was the worst part. Ryan hadn't stopped knowing me. He hadn't replaced intimacy with ignorance. He had simply learned how to use both. "I may be late again tonight," he said. "Norfolk, Richmond actually, different group." His phone lit up on the counter between us. I didn't look down immediately. Discipline is not the absence of impulse, it's the refusal to obey it. Then casually, as if reaching for the sugar, I glanced. Jessica still can't believe the house is almost ours. The screen went dark. Ryan picked up the phone and slid it into his jacket pocket. "Big day," he said. "I'm sure." He kissed me on the cheek before leaving. His mouth was warm. His aftershave lingered. I stood in the kitchen after the door closed, staring at nothing. The house is almost ours. Not apartment. Not condo. House. I had suspected property. Now I had a phrase, a thread. At the base, I moved through the morning with mechanical efficiency. The Defense Contracting Coordination Office was preparing for a major review of procurement proposals tied to a communications upgrade. It should have consumed all my attention. Normally it would have. Numbers, timelines, compliance gaps, vendor histories, those things were clean. They behaved under scrutiny. Human beings did not. Jessica arrived 10 minutes after me with a paper coffee cup and a bright yellow folder tucked under her arm. "Morning, morning." She settled at her desk, humming under her breath. The photograph of Ryan remained in its place like an accusation in a silver frame. Around mid-morning, she leaned over the partition. "Emma, can I ask you a weird question?" I kept my eyes on the contract summary. "Go ahead." "Do military families move a lot?" My fingers paused on the keyboard. "Often." "Is that hard on marriages?" I looked up slowly. Jessica's expression was open, curious, harmless. "It can be," I said. She nodded, absorbing that as if I were helping her solve someone else's puzzle. "Ryan says that's one of the reasons he never wanted to marry someone in uniform." There it was, a small cut. Clean and precise. I let my face remain neutral. "Did he?" "Yeah." She gave an apologetic little smile. "He said he respects service, of course, but he wanted a stable home, someone present, someone who wouldn't make him feel like he was always coming second to a mission." For a second, the office sounds receded. Phones, printers, keyboard clicks. Everything moved away. I saw Ryan at my promotion ceremony 6 years earlier, standing beside me in a dark suit, clapping, while I accepted the rank he later told friends had kept me busy. I saw myself packing at midnight while he watched from the bedroom doorway, saying he understood. I saw every missed dinner I had tried to make up for every anniversary gift mailed from an airport, every phone call made through unreliable connections, because I refused to let service become an excuse for emotional neglect. And all that time he had been auditioning another woman for the role of simpler wife. "That sounds like something he's thought about," I said. Jessica sighed happily. "He thinks deeply about everything." Not everything I thought, just escape routes. At lunch I called Major Sarah Mitchell from my car. Sarah had been JAG before moving into private military-adjacent family law. We had served together years ago in Germany, back when both of us were younger, sharper around the edges, and convinced exhaustion was a personality trait. She answered on the second ring. "Carter." "Sarah, I need legal advice." Her tone changed immediately. "Are you safe?" That was why I trusted her. She didn't ask if I was overreacting. She asked the question that mattered first. "Yes." "Is this about Ryan?" I closed my eyes for half a second. "Yes." "Talk." So I did. Not emotionally. Not fully. Just facts. The photograph. Jessica. 4 years. The ring. The messages. The restaurant charge. The house. Sarah listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then she said, "Do not confront him." I wasn't planning to. Good. Because the moment he knows you know, he'll start moving money, deleting messages, rewriting timelines, and turning himself into the victim. I watched 2 enlisted soldiers cross the parking lot, laughing about something I couldn't hear. "What do I need?" 3 categories, Sarah said. Financial dissipation, documented deception, and any evidence he's using marital assets to establish a separate household or business interest. Bank records, property deposits, wire transfers, credit card charges, screenshots, dates. Don't interpret yet. Just preserve. I started a timeline. "Of course you did." Despite everything, a tired smile touched my mouth. Sarah continued, "Use clean methods. Your accounts shared records, you can legally access things sent to you, things visible in public. Don't break into devices, don't touch her phone, don't get sloppy." I know you know. I'm saying it because rage makes smart women careless. I looked through the windshield at the base entrance. "I'm not raging." "No," Sarah said quietly. "That worries me more." That evening, after Ryan texted that Richmond was running late, I opened every financial portal I could legally access. Joint checking, shared investment account, credit cards, mortgage escrow, savings. The first hour produced nothing dramatic. Groceries, utilities, insurance, gas, restaurants, dry cleaning. Then the pattern appeared. Not all at once. Patterns rarely announce themselves. A $2,800 transfer to JM Consulting. A $3,500 transfer 6 weeks later. Another for $1,900. Then $6,000. All coded as project services. I opened a separate browser tab and searched the business registration. JM Consulting LLC. Registered agent Jessica Miller. The room seemed to shrink. I exported the statements. Saved them. Copied them to an encrypted drive. Then I kept going. A luxury furniture store in Arlington. $12,460. A jeweler in D.C. $38,700. A real estate holding company near Virginia Beach. $75,000 earnest money deposit. My hand stayed steady. That surprised me. Not because I felt nothing. Because I felt everything in a way that had become too large for visible reaction. The final document loaded slowly. Property purchase agreement. 4-bedroom waterfront home. Buyer Ryan Carter. Secondary authorized occupant Jessica Miller. Marital status listed single. I stared at that word for a long time. Single. 15 years erased in 6 letters. My phone buzzed. Ryan Longnight, don't wait up. I looked at the message, then at the purchase agreement, then at the wedding photograph on the shelf across the room. He was smiling in that picture too. Same dimple, same eyes, same confidence. I forwarded the encrypted folder to Sarah. Then I opened my timeline and added a new section. Money. Not suspicion. Not heartbreak. Evidence. By the time Ryan came home after midnight, I had showered, changed, and placed my laptop in the drawer of my nightstand. He moved through the bedroom quietly, smelling faintly of expensive wine and someone else's perfume. "You awake?" he whispered. "Barely." "Long day?" "Very." He climbed into bed beside me and kissed my shoulder. "Mine too." I lay still in the dark while he fell asleep within minutes. That was when I understood the true shape of his betrayal. Ryan wasn't just leaving me. He was using my trust to finance the door. For the next 4 days, I lived beside Ryan like a person sharing a house with weather. You don't argue with a storm while it's still forming. You study the pressure. You check the direction of the wind. You secure what matters before the windows break. Every morning he kissed me before leaving. Every night he gave me a different version of the same lie. Richmond ran long. A contracting dinner shifted locations. A partner wanted drinks after the meeting. A retired admiral was hard to pin down. He spoke with the relaxed confidence of a man who believed the woman across from him still inhabited yesterday. I let him believe it. At Fort Monroe, Jessica became more difficult to hate with each passing hour. That was inconvenient. If she had been smug, cruel, or knowingly complicit, I could have placed her neatly in the category where pain becomes clean. But she wasn't. She was excited, nervous, trusting. She asked me once whether cream-colored flowers looked too traditional for a fall wedding. She showed me a picture of a simple satin dress and blushed when she said Ryan cried the first time he saw her try it on. I smiled at the appropriate moments. I answered in a voice that belonged to a woman who was not currently watching her marriage disassemble itself through another woman's happiness. On Thursday morning, Jessica arrived carrying a garment bag over one arm and a bakery box in the other. "Okay," she said, dropping into her chair. "I need professional, calm person advice." I looked over the partition. "That's a specific category. You qualify." She set the bakery box on my desk. "Maple scone as payment." I stared at the box for half a second longer than necessary. Ryan used to bring me maple scones on Sundays after long field exercises because he knew I was too tired to pretend I wanted anything healthier. "What advice?" I asked. She unzipped the garment bag just enough to reveal dark green silk. "Investor reception tomorrow night. Ryan says it's small, but he's lying. Not in a bad way," she added quickly, laughing. "He just doesn't want me nervous. There are going to be defense executives, venture people, former military contacts, probably half the people he needs to impress before the company launch." I set my pen down. "The company launch?" Her face brightened. "Oh, I thought I mentioned it. Ryan's starting his own strategic advisory firm. Defense logistics, private sector modernization, that kind of thing. He says the military world is full of people who know how systems should work, but don't know how to sell that knowledge." I felt a cold line travel down my spine. "What is the firm called?" "Carter Meridian Group." She said it with pride, like she had practiced the name in a mirror. He wanted something that sounded established. "Carter. My married name. Our name. Used to brand the structure he built to leave me." "Sounds polished," I said. "Right." Jessica leaned closer. "I'm helping with operations after the wedding. Nothing huge at first, but Ryan says he wants me in from the beginning. He says real partners build together." "Real partners." I took the scone from the box because my hands needed something ordinary to do. "Is tomorrow's reception on base?" "No, at the Jefferson Hotel in Richmond. Very elegant. Ryan said the guest list is tight, mostly investors and senior people who can open doors." I nodded. "Big night." "The biggest." Her smile softened. "He keeps saying after tomorrow our life starts for real." I looked at her ring, at the diamond catching the office light. at the future she thought was waiting. "Then I hope you get the truth," I said. Jessica didn't notice the wording. Me too. That afternoon, Sarah called while I was reviewing vendor compliance reports. I stepped into an empty conference room and closed the door. "Tell me you found something I can use," I said. "I found several things," Sarah replied, "and you're not going to like any of them." I leaned against the table. "Go ahead." Carter Meridian Group filed formation documents 6 months ago. Ryan is listed as principal. Jessica Miller is listed as Director of Operations with a 25% profit interest vesting after marriage. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she is. There's more. The initial capital deposit appears to trace back to the joint investment account you flagged. The property deposit does too. I had a forensic accountant review the statements you sent. This is marital asset dissipation with a bow on it. How solid? Solid enough to seek emergency financial restraints if needed. Solid enough to make him very uncomfortable in front of a judge. I opened my eyes. What about the reception tomorrow? Sarah went quiet for a beat. What are you considering? I'm considering attending. Emma. He's presenting a firm funded partly by marital assets while introducing another woman as his future wife, in a room full of defense contacts, some of whom may assume his background is clean because my name is attached to him. That is exactly why you need to be careful. I won't make a scene. I know, that's not my concern. What is... You won't need to make one for the room to turn into one. That was true. Some truths create their own blast radius. Sarah continued, If you go as yourself, not as a betrayed wife looking for blood, as Colonel Emma Carter with documentation, organized copies preserved, and a legal strategy already in motion. I have all of that. Then listen carefully. Do not accuse him of crimes in broad emotional language. Do not call her names. Do not touch him. Do not block exits. You present facts if asked. You preserve your dignity. Let him destroy his own. A memory rose without warning. Kandahar. A briefing tent. A young lieutenant panicking over a convoy route that had changed 3 times in 12 hours. My voice telling him, control what can be controlled. Understood, I said. One more thing, Sarah added. Brigadier General Thomas Avery is on the guest list. I straightened. Tom Avery. You know him. He pinned my silver star. Sarah exhaled softly. Then tomorrow may not require much introduction. I looked through the glass wall of the conference room. Jessica was at her desk holding the picture frame and smiling down at Ryan's face. No, I said quietly. I don't think it will. That night Ryan came home early. That alone told me tomorrow mattered. He found me in the dining room reviewing printed documents arranged in neat stacks. They were legitimate work papers from the base placed there for appearance. The real folder sat locked in the cabinet beside my chair. Still working, he asked. Always. He loosened his tie and poured himself a drink from the sideboard. Big day tomorrow. For both of us, apparently. His hand paused just slightly. Meaning? You said you had an event. The pause vanished. The smile returned. Right, a small reception. Nothing you'd enjoy. Defense people. Some. Anyone I know? He laughed. Probably not. Different circles. Different circles. I almost admired the arrogance. He believed my world ended where his lies began. I hope it goes well, I said. He came around the table and kissed the top of my head. You're sweet. I looked down at the papers so he wouldn't see my face. The next evening I dressed with the same care I used before command ceremonies. Not flashy. Not vengeful. Precise. A black tailored dress beneath a cream military-style coat. Low heels, hair pinned back, minimal jewelry, wedding band on my hand. Not because I still honored the marriage. Because Ryan had spent years pretending it didn't exist. I intended to bring it into the room. The Jefferson Hotel glowed under warm lights when my car pulled up. Through the tall windows I could see people in dark suits moving between chandeliers and white tablecloths. Laughter drifted into the night air each time the doors opened. I stepped inside. For a moment no one noticed me. Then I saw them near the front of the ballroom. Ryan in a navy suit. Jessica in dark green silk. His hand resting at the small of her back. They looked elegant, confident, almost convincing. A server passed with champagne. A woman near the entrance checked names on a tablet. Name, ma'am? Colonel Emma Carter. The woman looked down, then up again. Something in her expression changed. Yes, Colonel. General Avery asked that you be seated near the front. Across the room, Ryan turned at the sound of my name. Our eyes met. For the first time in 4 years, my husband had nowhere to hide. Ryan's face changed in stages. First recognition, then disbelief, then calculation. I had watched men receive unexpected battlefield reports with that same expression, the split second where the mind rejects the information before discipline or ego forces it to reorganize around the new reality. Jessica turned slightly following his line of sight. Her smile faltered when she saw me, not because she understood, not yet, because something in Ryan's body had gone rigid beneath his tailored suit. The woman at the registration table handed me a place card with both hands. "Right this way, Colonel." The word traveled farther than it should have. "Colonel." A few heads turned. Ryan recovered quickly, but not completely. He stepped away from Jessica with the kind of casual movement people use when they want to hide urgency. "Emma." He said my name softly when I reached him, as though softness could make the situation private. "Ryan?" Jessica looked between us. "You two know each other?" The room seemed to narrow around that question. Ryan opened his mouth. I waited. There are moments when silence is not passive. It is a test. A space you offer someone to see whether he will choose truth when lying has finally become dangerous. Ryan failed. "Emma and I have crossed paths through defense work," he said smoothly. Crossed paths. 15 years of marriage reduced to an intersection. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I turned to Jessica. "I'm his wife." No volume, no trembling. Just the sentence. Jessica's face emptied. Not dramatically, not like in movies. Her expression simply lost its structure, as if every belief holding it together had been pulled out at once. "His what?" Ryan reached for her arm. "Jessica, let's talk privately." She stepped back before he touched her. "No." Around us, the reception shifted. Conversations softened. Several people pretended not to listen, which meant they listened harder. Ryan lowered his voice. "Emma, this is not the place." That almost made me smile. For years he had decided the places where truth could not enter. Our kitchen, our bedroom, our bank statements, another woman's future. Now he wanted rules. "You're right," I said. "This is not the place for a marriage to be erased." His jaw tightened. Before he could answer, a deep voice came from behind me. "Colonel Carter." I turned. Brigadier General Thomas Avery stood near the center aisle, silver hair neatly combed dress uniform, immaculate eyes already reading the room. He extended his hand and I took it. "General Avery." "It's been too long." "Yes, sir." He held my gaze for an extra second, the way commanders do when they can see there is more happening than rank requires them to acknowledge. Then he looked past me at Ryan. "Mr. Carter." Ryan straightened automatically. "General, thank you for coming." Avery's expression remained polite. "I came because your materials referenced strategic advisory partnerships with several defense stakeholders. I was curious." His eyes moved briefly to me. "Now I'm more curious." Ryan's smile strained. "Of course, we're excited to share the vision." Jessica was still staring at me. "Wife," she whispered. I looked at her, and for the first time that night my control almost cracked. Not because of Ryan, because of her. The green silk dress, the diamond ring, the stunned, wounded confusion of a woman realizing her love story had been someone else's theft. 15 years, I said gently. Her hand flew to her mouth. Ryan shook his head. "Jessica, she and I have been separated in every meaningful way for years." That sentence landed exactly where he aimed it between us. But it had no foundation. "No, Ryan," I said. "We had breakfast together yesterday. You kissed me before work. You texted me goodnight from what you claimed was Richmond." Avery's eyes sharpened. Jessica's breathing changed. Ryan's face hardened. "You don't want to do this." It was not a warning a husband gives a wife. It was a warning a cornered man gives a witness. I opened my handbag and removed the folder Sarah had prepared. Not thick. Not theatrical. Organized. Precise. "Actually, I do." Ryan glanced toward the investors gathering near the front. Several had stopped pretending. The host from Carter Meridian Group stood frozen beside the podium. I handed the first page to Jessica. "This is the property agreement for the house Ryan told you was almost yours. It lists him as single." Her hand shook as she took it. I handed the second page to General Avery. "This is the formation record for Carter Meridian Group, funded in part through marital accounts without my knowledge or consent." Ryan moved toward me. "Emma." Avery stepped half a pace into his path, not aggressively, just enough. The room understood. I continued. "These are wire transfers to JM Consulting LLC registered to Jessica Miller. These are credit card charges for jewelry, furniture, and travel. These are account withdrawals tied to the property deposit. Jessica looked down at the pages. Her lips parted. You said the money was from your firm. Ryan turned toward her. It was complicated. No. Her voice sharpened. Was she your wife when you proposed to me? He didn't answer fast enough. That was answer enough. A murmur moved through the ballroom. One investor, a gray-haired man in a black suit, closed the Carter Meridian brochure in his hand. Another whispered to his attorney. The host stepped toward Ryan. Mr. Carter, perhaps we should postpone the presentation. Ryan's composure cracked. This is a personal matter. No, I said. You made it a financial matter when you used marital assets to build a business and a separate household. You made it a professional matter when you brought that business into a room full of people whose trust you were asking to purchase. General Avery looked at the documents, then back at Ryan. Did you disclose any pending domestic litigation or contested ownership interests in your initial materials? Ryan swallowed. There is no litigation. Yet, I said. That single word settled over the table. Jessica removed the ring slowly. I watched it happen, not with satisfaction, with grief, because the ring had never belonged to either of us. It was just another object Ryan had used to make lies feel permanent. She placed it on the nearest cocktail table. I didn't know, she said to me. I believe you. Her eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. Then she looked at Ryan. I hope she takes everything you stole. She walked out of the ballroom without looking back. Ryan started after her. Jessica. Avery's voice stopped him. Mr. Carter. Ryan turned. The general handed the pages back to me. I think your investors deserve a revised disclosure. By the end of the night, the reception had dissolved. Not with shouting, not with thrown glasses. With quiet exits, withdrawn handshakes, and the efficient disappearance of people who understood risk. Ryan followed me outside near the valet stand. The Richmond air was cold. Emma, wait. I stopped, but did not turn around immediately. When I finally faced him, he looked older than he had 2 hours earlier. We can fix this, he said. I studied him. There had been a time when those words would have pulled something tender from me. A belief, a memory, a reflex of loyalty. Now they sounded like a man asking for access to the evidence room. No, I said, you can answer for it. 3 months later, the temporary financial restraining order became permanent enough to matter. Sarah filed the petition with every transfer attached. The court froze disputed assets. The house sale collapsed. Carter Meridian Group lost its initial backers before it ever opened its doors. Ryan's existing contracts came under review, not because I ruined him, but because he had attached his reputation to transactions he could not explain. Jessica sent me one email, one paragraph. No excuses, just an apology. I replied with 2 words, I know. The divorce took longer than people imagine revenge should take. Real consequences are rarely cinematic. They arrive through filings, hearings, signatures, audits, and the slow humiliation of facts being placed in order. But when it ended, I kept the house in Alexandria, recovered a substantial portion of the diverted assets, and removed my name from every structure Ryan had tried to build with my trust. People asked me later if I felt victorious. I never knew how to answer that. Victory sounds too clean. What I felt was steadier than victory. I felt returned to myself. On my last morning before transferring to a new command assignment, I drove past the parade field at Fort Monroe. The fog sat low over the grass again, almost the same as it had on my first day. The base was waking, flags lifting, engines starting, people moving into the work of the day. I thought about the photograph on Jessica's desk, how one image had cracked open a life I thought was whole. Ryan had spent 4 years building a second life. I spent 4 months proving it never belonged to him. And if there is one thing I hope you take from my story, it is this: betrayal may knock the breath out of you, but it does not get to define the rest of your life. Sometimes the strongest response is not screaming. It is standing still long enough to gather the truth. If this story stayed with you, share where you're listening from in the comments. Tell me what you would have done in Emma's place. And if you believe quiet strength can be more powerful than revenge, subscribe and stay with us. There are more stories ahead, and every one of them reminds us that dignity can survive even the deepest betrayal.